Hello everyone, I hope life is treating you well and that you find yourself fulfilled. One of my greatest sources of inspiration is the cinema. There was a time in my life when the cinema was like a second home to me. I still go as often as I can, but with new responsibilities. Life keeps me very busy. Nonetheless, I make it my duty to watch as many films of as many different genres and different eras as I humanly can. There are so many films that I have yet to see, so I thought it would be an interesting idea to choose 5 films that are rapidly approaching on my horizon. To start off, it's been some time now that I've been intrigued by the Italian filmmaker Bernardo Bertolucci. He is widely considered to be one of the greatest directors in Italian cinema, and his work spanning a 50-year career has brought him international acclaim. Though I regret to say that I'm not well versed in the Italian cinema scene. I clearly have homework to do. Of his work that I am aware of, Bertolucci is the director of The Conformist, which I have over here. So this is a neo-noir film from 1970 that I've been dying to watch for years now. I'm a total sucker for that subgenre of cinema. I also learned recently that he was partly responsible for the story of the legendary Sergio Leone Western epic, Once Upon a Time in the West. Holy shit, that's pretty cool. But the film of his that I'm most eager to view currently is The Last Emperor. And this came out in the year 1987. I watched this film when I was a young boy, and apart from a few frames here and there, I remember nothing of this film. I think I was far too young to appreciate a film of this kind at that point in my life. It's a 3-hour historical epic on the life of Pu Yi, the last emperor of the Qing dynasty in China. It's a powerful film depicting the leader's tumultuous reign and his experience of being captured by the Red Army as a war criminal. We also witness his memories of the Forbidden City when he was a child and how he was completely shielded from the realities of the world outside. And this film is of particular historical significance since it was the first feature film to be permitted to be filmed inside the Forbidden City. It sounds like an astounding subject for any film to tackle, and for that, the film earned widespread critical acclaim. It earned 9 Academy Award nominations and ended up winning all 9 Oscars, of course including Best Picture and Director. I'm eager to revisit this film, not only with a fresh pair of eyes, but with about 2 decades of added life experience to help me process the film's message and artistry. Next up, originally I had another film in this spot on my list, but since I took my sweet ass time to get around to recording this video, well, I already kinda had the pleasure of watching this thing. This movie right here. This is a wonderful classic heist film from 1973. I absolutely loved it, and even my birds had a blast watching the film with me. Robert Redford and Paul Newman make an incredible duo on screen. They have such swagger in their roles as master con artists. Each moment of the film was crafted with love and care. Anyway, I'm here to talk about another film. Curiously enough, there is a connecting thread between this next film I'm going to talk about and the one I just mentioned, and that is the legendary actor Paul Newman. Alright, enough teasing. The movie that I have on my radar is The Color of Money, directed by none other than Martin Scorsese. This film came out in the year 1986. Scorsese is one of the most respected filmmakers of all time. He has one of the most varied and powerful filmographies. It's truly an outstanding collection of work. And on a personal level, he's intimately related to my growth as an artist. I won't go into detail on that today because I think Martin Scorsese merits a full video of its own one day. But I will say that though I've seen most of his filmography, there's still a handful of his older films that I've yet to watch, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So I'm bumping The Color of Money high on my list of film viewing priorities. There are several reasons why I want to watch this film. First off, Paul Newman is a world-class actor. He's been nominated 9 times for an Academy Award for his acting prowess, though he only ever won once, and that was for this film actually. But most importantly, I'm intrigued by the story. Essentially, this is an American sports drama film about the life of a pool hustler and a steak horse that goes by the name of Edward Fast Eddie Felsen. And as I was researching this film, I learned something that totally caught me by surprise. The Color of Money is actually a sequel to an old 1961 film called The Hustler. Paul Newman actually plays that same Fast Eddie character in both films. I picked up The Hustler in Jean Coutu of all places for like $3. I had no idea what I was picking up, and I had no idea that I was actually picking up a classic film that received 8 Oscar nominations back in the day, and is the first part of this character story, of a film that I already own, just haven't got around to watching yet. So yeah, that was a pretty lucky find. I also learned that these films are based on books of the same name written by Walter Tevis. It appears that he was inspired by the real-life Eddie Parker, who was famously known as Fast Eddie Parker. So yeah, clearly the inspiration was there. So yeah, it seems that not only do I have one great film to watch, but 2 great movies to watch. And I can't wait to see what's in store. The next film is by the Czech and American film director Milos Forman, who passed away at the age of 86 back in 2018. So this is pretty recent. This is the guy who directed the legendary 1975 film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, starring Jack Nicholson, Louis Fletcher, Brad Dourif, and Danny DeVito, to name but a few. This is a timeless classic that is fondly remembered even after all these years later. At the time, it received 9 Academy Award nominations and won 5 in all the major categories. So that's Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, as well as Actor and Actress in a Leading Role. I am well overdue to rewatch this film now that I've grown older. I watched this film as a child, and it left a mark on me even all these years later. Perhaps I'll read the book first, since I have it in my collection now, before I revisit the film. He also directed one of my favorite Jim Carrey films, Man on the Moon, which was released in 1999. This is an incredible biopic of Andy Kaufman. The movie is barking mad, as well it should be, seeing that it's a biopic of Andy Kaufman. If you don't know who that is, well, just go watch the movie and you will get a pretty good idea. In any case, he's also responsible for directing another wonderful biopic in the 90s, and that is The People vs. Larry Flint. And it's a film that's been on my radar for many, many years now. And I actually just watched it for the first time while on my flight to Vancouver. I had the film downloaded on my iPad, and thank God I was sitting next to the window where I could hide my screen a bit. Because what a wild story. Holy shit. Yeah, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's basically the movie in a nutshell. So yeah, the story is about Larry Flint, the president of the Hustler magazine. It recounts his experience of several super high-profile legal battles involving the First Amendment. It's an absolutely insane biopic that left me feeling dizzy by the end. But it's worth watching at least once in your life. If for no other reason, Woody Harrelson, who's an amazing actor, gives the performance of a lifetime, which actually nabbed him his first Oscar nomination. But the movie from Milos Forman that I have yet to see and must see is Amadeus. Yet another biopic film, this time set in the 18th century Vienna, Austria, which is a fictionalized story of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. I don't want to investigate more of what this film is about because I just want to dive in headfirst and see what all the fuss is about. This is another 3-hour epic film, one of the Goliaths of the cinemas in the 80s. Recently, actually, in 2019, this film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. It's a film that received 11 Academy Award nominations and is actually infamous for having 2 nominations for actor in a leading role. Yeah, that's pretty rare. Obviously, only one of the nominated actors went home with the award, but in total, the film actually was awarded 8 Oscars, of course, including Best Picture and Director. All that praise aside, the only incentive I really need to see this film is the fact that Milos Forman is at the helm as the director. Honestly, I can't wait to see it. The fourth film that I put on this list is once again another biopic, and yes, again from the 80s. I swear it's not like I'm exclusively aiming for biopic from the 80s. I simply analyzed my collection and made a decision based purely on intuition. But clearly there's something that's attracting me to these kind of stories from that era of cinema. I'm sure that the state of the world in September 2022 is feeling that in some major way. In any case, that film that I have in mind is Gandhi, a film that came out in 1982, directed by Richard Attenborough. And yes, he is the older brother of the beloved Sir David Attenborough of BBC fame for his outstanding work on animal and plant life, on Earth. But to return to Richard Attenborough, I never connected the dots until now that he was the man who played Dr. John Hammond in Jurassic Park. This man truly has a massive career in cinema, spanning from the early 1940s up until the late 2000s. I was also amazed to learn that during 1943 to 1946, he was part of the Royal Air Force Film Production Unit during World War II. On those missions, he would be filming from the rear gunner position to record the outcomes of the bomb command. So yeah, Richard Attenborough seems to have had a very full life, and unfortunately he passed away in the year 2014 at the age of 90. So yeah, a very respectable age. I think that film history may remember him best for the work he did directing the film Gandhi. The film is a depiction of the life of Mohandas Gandhi, the Indian leader who stood up against the British rule over his country with non-violence. It's an incredible subject for a film to tackle, and the film is over 3 hours in length, which I think seems appropriate for such an important and influential character. Ben Kingsley plays the role of Gandhi in a performance that earned him widespread critical acclaim, as well as an Oscar. Honestly, Ben Kingsley has been a long-time favorite of mine, so I'm eager to see his portrayal of Gandhi. And when I think about it, it still blows me away that this guy's capable of becoming Gandhi on one film and being the meanest motherfucker ever in a film like Sexy Beast, which is a great film, by the way, if you're interested in that kind of crime drama. Anyway, another gargantuan epic film from the 80s. and another massive winner at the Oscars. So it was nominated for 11 Academy Awards and actually won 8 of them. So the film earned Oscars for Best Picture, Directing, Screenplay, Art Direction, Cinematography, Costume Design, Film Editing, and of course, acting in leading role. And now, for the last film on the list. Is it going to be another 3-hour epic from the 80s? Not at all, actually. And it couldn't be further from the style that we were looking at earlier. And God help us if it were a biopic. Though, come to think of it, this director did cut his teeth in the 80s as one of the craziest and most adventurous filmmakers ever, even to this day. The movie I have in mind is Crash. No, not the 2004 Crash directed by Paul Haggis, though that's a great film too. I'm actually talking about the 1996 one. That fucking film. I have yet to watch it, but knowing David Cronenberg is the director, I know that I'm in for one hell of a ride. And before we move on, I did mention his films from the 80s, and truly they are some of the most twisted fucking movies you will ever see. And if you think that, hey, it was the 80s, I'm sure they aged badly, well, perhaps the visual effects have aged to a certain degree, obviously, but their potency of these films is just as hair-raising as it ever was, I promise you. On a side note, his 2 films from mid-2000s with Viggo Mortensen were actually my introduction to Cronenberg, and these films absolutely blew me away and were quite formative in my young teenage years as an aspiring artist. Honestly, my highest recommendations. These films are definitely some of the best of the decade. Anyway, all I know about this film Crash is its synopsis, which I will read to you. Crash is about the strange lure of the auto collision provoking, as it does the human fascination with death and the tendency to eroticize danger. Most motorists will slow down to stare at the scene of a collision. They may feel their pulses quickening and become aware of the fragility of their own bodies. The characters of Crash carry this awareness a step further, cherishing and nurturing it. For them, a car collision is a sexual turn-on and a jolting life force they come to crave. Only David Cronenberg would have the balls to make an entire feature film out of this. And there you have it, 5 great films that would be an absolute crime to miss out on. Honestly, there's so many other films that I need to watch, or in many cases, rewatch since years have passed since my last viewing. Even for films that I feel I've watched dozens of times, I always find something new to learn and inspire myself for my creativity. I imagine that much like with books, I'll do another video like this in the future to list out a few other films that I feel are worthwhile. There's so many movies that are worth highlighting and that go under the radar, even for someone like me. So until then, take care and have a wonderful day.